social psychology aspect of how a child develops. So, and study or work or paint or do some music or art. Should I be lazy or should I right now sit and finish my homework? Should I be doing unstructured play, which is maybe play some hide and seek or this, that, or should I play some structured sports which has absolute clear rules in it? You're not going to get the results from the child. Beyond just casual talk, there can be meaningful conversations. And in those meaningful conversations, you have to then also diagnose what is really happening with the child. Or the child may be too dependent on that and is not responding to adult-like conversations. And learn what is working for the child. If you have had a decent relationship with the child and if you've helped the child through its ages of 3, 4, 5 appropriately, now you will need to change gears because now what the child is going through. Hello parents and welcome back to Parent Shift, a place where we speak about conscious parenting. Aarti and I met you a couple of weeks back where we had started our podcast series where Aarti has been researching and working with parents on their questions and what they want to know. And through this podcast, we've been attempting to answer those questions and we'll continue to do so. Aarti is here again with us with her research and what she's spoken about with parents, and I'm sure she's picked up a very interesting topic. And like usual, she's told me a little, she's not told me a lot. So let's unravel this as we work with it. I'll hand it over to Aarti to introduce the topic and take our conversation further.
Hello, it's so nice to be back on this podcast. And yes, I did speak with a couple of parents, and they were really happy about the previous video. And one thing that they did remember was to ask themselves at the end of the day if they made their children feel safe, if they made their children feel heard. And that I think is really helping them. So thank you, Dada, for that takeaway. And
Oh, that's
while
lovely
I
if
was
they are using that question because I think towards the end you had really asked me what is that one question you want to leave everyone with. So lovely. Good, good. Glad to hear that.
Absolutely. And and while I was speaking to them, the most common theme was, and which is going to be the topic for today, is parenting preteens and
Okay.
teens.
Okay.
So because
Lovely.
it is a broad topic, we plan
Hmm.
to break it into two parts and speak to you in two separate podcasts about this
Hmm.
big, huge topic. And today we'll take care of the first topic. And
Okay.
but before that, Dada, like before we get into preteens, one common thing that kept coming when I was talking to parents was that parenting is really hard, it's difficult.
Okay.
And
So,
I was wondering, we maybe we could just talk a little bit about that first.
so I think let me just put this in the most comic way that I really actually know how to talk about this. Look, we all have gadgets and instruments in our life and there is an operating manual that comes with it. Human beings are not born with an operating manual at all. We have to figure out how to operate ourselves and how to operate everybody and including our children. And then when it comes to children, we have expectations of children and children have expectations of us. Look, that's the output. But to get the output, you don't need to know the operating manual, right? So
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. Well, it's a perception. Parenting is difficult. So if you don't have scientific basis of parenting, parenting can become difficult. And when I say scientific, where does this science come from? It comes from the biology of human development. It comes from neurology and physiology, which are parts of that biology aspect of human development. It comes from understanding the psychological development of a child. It comes
Yeah.
from understanding the sociological development and also understanding how the world is influencing that child. An extension of that, which is then social psychology aspect of how a child develops. So none of us is taught self-awareness, understanding, managing selves like that. None of us is taught parenting. We need to learn it. I mean, it would have been fortunate if this subject got covered in school or college at some point in time, at least in college for many of us, if we could learn some of these aspects. But my encouragement to all parents, if you think parenting is difficult, that's a place where you need knowledge and expert advice. I'm not asking you to go in and meet a counselor. Read. Today, a lot of good authors are writing. Then our channel is there. We are producing a lot of these videos. There are so many other speakers you will find. It's a subject that very few people speak about, but whoever has authority on the subject speaks about it. So listen, read, understand. If you need advice, go to an expert. It'll be. But the answer to your question, children don't come with an operating manual. You think you're writing one, by the end of the day, the operating manual is obsolete. You wake up the next day, you only discover that the child is new. The child is very new in 2 weeks' time. The child is absolutely new in 6 months' time. The child is absolutely brand new in about 2 years' time. So what you knew about the child at 4 years is not going to work at 6. Definitely not at 8. Absolutely not at 10. And you're horrendously wrong if you think it's going to work at 12 years. So you've got to upgrade yourselves. Parenting is a learning journey. That brings me to the second thing. If you think parenting is difficult, then possibly as a parent, you're not learning. Right? That's the big thing. And one big problem of human race is not learning things, isn't it, about our life? We think we know everything. We think we can manage. I'll give you an example. I was recently speaking and advising somebody on parenting issues, and this person has been coming back repeatedly and has been getting very good results. However, there's a challenge that this person is facing with his spouse. And I don't want to point a finger at the man or the woman in the relationship. It could be anybody, but here is what it is. In this case, it just accidentally happens that the mother is not open to taking advice from anyone. Says we should figure out parenting on our own. How could you if you don't have a background? You might be an educated engineer or a doctor or whoever you could be, but it's not your subject. If you need advice, you need advice. It's as simple as that. So I'll leave it at that. This is how we make parenting difficult, by not having the knowledge around it, by not having the attitude to learn ourselves, by not getting advice. And in today's complicated world, it's as important or maybe much more important than financial advice, investment advice, etc.
So true. So true. And I would like to extend this a little because I heard parents say that, you can never really prepare to be a parent. But what you just said,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
maybe we can.
Yeah, actually, and I think we have spoken about this in several videos on our channel, and also in the last podcast, we spoke about foundations of parenting. And I think the
Hmm.
simplest thing for us to understand is there is something called age appropriate parenting,
Yeah,
and which
you keep
works.
saying that.
So, yeah, and I think you and I have discussed so much with several parents about this. Look, it's as simple, and most parents will realize this. When they go to a pediatrician, the pediatrician will say, what is the height, what is the weight, certain other vitals, reactions, eating, habits that are forming. And the pediatrician continues to check these things because there is enough data and research now available through various agencies and global standards where we know that for a certain race, a certain genetic makeup, etc., what is the average growth that's possible. And most
Hmm.
parents have experienced this with their pediatricians. Unfortunately, what they have not experienced is that there is also a measure of psychological development, right? Ultimately, within that physiology, within that neurology, the software that's running and the expression and dealing with this world is happening through the psychological development and the sociological development of the world, of
Yeah.
the child, right? Right? Like a very simple example. Is the child able to communicate with strangers like other kids in a creche or a school or in a marketplace?
Hmm.
Obviously, in a safe environment. Yeah. Is the child aware of how does it deal with new tasks, new challenges?
Yeah.
Right? Does the child pay attention to, let's say, homework that the parents are giving? These are all age appropriate behaviors at different stages. At 4, this will mean something different. At 8, this will mean something different. At 12, this will mean something different.
True.
Right? Like you may want to check for assertion at 12,
Hmm. Hmm.
but you may want to check for curiosity at 8,
Hmm.
isn't it? You may want to check for attention at 4. Now, I'm not saying attention is not important at 8 or 12. Attention is equally important, but you can't say curiosity and this and that and everything will be present at 4.
Absolutely.
right? The child's brain at 4 is not able to deal with so many complex things, but at 8, its faculties are improved enough so that you can see a lot more of curiosity and discovery and all of those things. And in that age group of 6 to 10, those are, and I'm taking an average age group of 8 there. But
Hmm.
at 12, the child should be able to express its viewpoint,
Hmm.
isn't it? So this is what is the understanding of age appropriate development of a child. And to do that, you need to understand what is age appropriate parenting. Now, that will have parts of what is my age appropriate understanding of my child, what
Hmm.
can be my age appropriate expectation from my child, what should be the age appropriate instructions I give to my child, what
Yeah.
should be the age appropriate participation that I do with the child, right? Like again, in this example, if you're working with a child on school, with a child of 4, you have to keep them engaged by multiple stimuli within a 1 hour span. But you don't expect to stimulate the teenager multiple times in that hour. The teenager should be
Yeah.
capable of sitting down for 3, 4 hours and study or work or paint or do some music or art, because you expect that concentration.
Right.
So you understand age appropriateness of the child, and you have to understand age appropriateness of the parenting. If that doesn't come through, the foundations are going to be pure. And it's going to be a serious challenge then in parenting.
So now that you've brought up age-appropriate parenting, and it is very
Hmm.
well connected with our topic today, which is parenting, nurturing preteens, and the second part is adolescence. And we have a wonderful psychologist who talks about various psychosocial stages of development in psychology,
Hmm.
um, Eric Erikson. And he has told us that at every stage, a child goes through a very
Hmm.
important psychological crisis. And if he's able to
Hmm.
resolve that, then he develops a
Hmm.
virtue. And in this particular
Hmm.
stage, which is 6 to 11, the crisis is
Hmm.
industry versus inferiority. And the virtue that
Hmm.
the child is
Hmm.
going to develop is that of competence.
Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
this is
Hmm.
also the
Hmm.
stage where children are developing intellectually, cognitively, and
Hmm.
there is also an
Hmm.
element of complex emotions. Then they are also
Hmm.
understanding their impact on the world. They are able to recognize
Hmm.
how somebody takes what they are saying, what impact they are causing on others. They're also developing intentionality, and
Hmm.
would want to speak
Hmm.
about that as well. But this is
Hmm.
a very,
Hmm.
which is what we call the primary, in India, we have the primary section where they go and then they are focusing on study. So,
Hmm.
Dada, with that in context, the first question that comes to my mind is what happens if a child is overcorrected at this stage when they
Hmm.
are developing competence
Hmm.
instead of connecting with the child? What is the risk we hold
I,
with this mistake?
hmm. Now, I think a very good question. I will just take a few minutes to clarify something for the parents who are listening to us, and then come to your question if that is okay. Right? Since you brought in Eric Erickson's psychosocial stages, beautiful model. Parents must read about this. You use two terms there: psychological crisis and virtues. Just
Yes.
quick two-line explanations of that for parents who are listening. A psychological crisis is like in your mind there are two set of choices that are available, or two
Hmm.
set of behavioral patterns that are available. Like I'll give you very very simple example. um, should I be lazy, or should I right now sit and finish my homework? Should
Hmm.
I be doing unstructured play, which is maybe play some hide and seek or this, that, or should I play some structured sports which has absolute clear rules in it, like engage in a cricket or whatever? Or if I'm playing hide and seek, then there are hard and fast rules which we should not violate as children. Those kind of things. Or same goes for music. Instead of just playing around with the instrument, do I just do I make sure that I practice the lesson that my teacher gave and
Hmm.
practice the raga or the notes or the scale? So that's the psychological crisis that children go through. Do I do this or choose this or choose this? So those choices, those actions, they then over a period of time become behaviors. That's where. And the word that Aarti used, virtues, what is it? It's a basic strength. So when you
Hmm.
do something, a strength emerges. Or when you don't do something, the strength doesn't emerge. Or when you don't do the positive, strength doesn't emerge. So the words Aarti used, industry versus inferiority. Industry means, do I put in the work, especially the hard work, rigorous work, repetitive work? And inferiority then is that, do I just let it be, or do I take it easy? Do I take it casual? Do I not push myself? Or do I have frustration that comes up and I give in to the frustration, I leave it, I don't practice, etc. Children go through these two behaviors. Parents, if they correct them, if they don't correct them, they will play a part. And then if children go through industry, which means they put in effort, focus, learn, then they develop what Aarti called out as competence, which is the ability to deal with things. Part of competence is also intentionality, which is intentionally doing things. And I'll come to that in just a little bit. So I think with that clarification, let me come to the overcorrection question that you asked. Let's understand what is correction. Correction can be taken in two ways. Simplest thing to understand will be, the child has done homework and it gives it to its teacher to check. Correction. Now the teacher can do it in two ways. The teacher can either say, good, things done, here is a small mistake, here is how you need to correct it. Right? And this was, let's say, for example, science homework. Now, the science teacher, instead of looking at the science homework and correcting that small mistake, ignores everything. Bad handwriting, this is not followed, that is not followed, you did not write the question and then write the answer, you have to do this. So this form of correction is where you're getting into judging the child. You are throwing away some good work, you are not maintaining your boundary, you are not focusing on what you should be focusing on as an adult, and you're focusing on whatever you felt you should be focusing on, and telling the child a whole host of things. Is it making sense, Aarti?
Yes,
so I think
absolutely.
our parents and viewers need to understand that you could be correcting the child like correcting the science homework correctly, which means read everything and ignore the handwriting, ignore this, ignore that. Look at, has the child followed the science of what you taught, the lessons what you taught, and what is the child missing, and you give the input there. On the other side, the other science teacher, which is look at the handwriting also, structure also, neatness of the copy also, cutting also, and then look at all sorts of other aspects and totally ignore. So you are ignoring the boundary, ignoring the purpose and all that. Then that becomes overcorrecting. That's one way of overcorrecting. So what is this overcorrection that we are talking about? This overcorrection is missing the context, missing the picture, missing the content, missing the essence of what you're supposed to be doing. You can't expect a child to be doing everything at the same time. Again, age appropriate. Now, if you had picked on the child at age 15, even then it would have been incorrect, because to talk to a teenager, you have to talk to them differently. Now, if you had done this at age 6, then also it is a problem. Now, the preteen age that we're talking about, because the child's brain is not going to be able to process all this complex. So, is this clear? So,
Yes.
Violating context, content, and what really needs to be done, this can become overcorrecting.
Right.
The second form of overcorrecting can become time, which means you're doing it all the time. You tell the child once a week, okay, this week, these are few things to be corrected. Or once a week in Hindi, if you're seeing, you correct this, or in 1 or 2 lessons, if you give some correction, and then let the child be. It's fine. You practice with the child. But if you constantly hover over the child, this is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong. In all subjects, you are wrong. When you're playing, you are wrong. When you're eating, you are wrong. When you're bathing, you are wrong. When you're dressing, you are wrong. When you're doing this, you're wrong. When you talk in front of uncle, you are wrong. When you're sitting in the car, you're wrong. When you're going into the bus, you're wrong. So you get this. This is the second form of overcorrecting, where you're doing it all the time. Then where is your time to give the positive strokes? So here literally it then becomes negative strokes, where earlier you were violating the context and your role in that given circumstance. Here you are violating the concept of strokes itself. Instead of giving positive strokes to the child most of the time and once in a while correcting the child, you're doing constant negative strokes. Is this making sense? The other way
Absolutely.
that overcorrecting can happen?
Yes.
The third way of overcorrecting is more of an in situ overcorrecting. Now, let's say in situ is what? You're giving so many instructions to child, do this also, do this also, do this also, do this also, and do this also. Like you said, take a bath, don't do this. Get out. When you dress, don't do this. When you come out, your breakfast will be ready, don't do this. Then there is this, don't do this, don't do this. Do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this. You said some 10, 15 things and you last said, I'm getting late for office, I'm leaving. So you started from the child's bathing or brushing or whatever to the dressing to the whatever, and you gave a long list of instructions. Mind it, this is a 7, 8-year-old or maybe 9-year-old or 10-year-old. And the last thing you said, I'm getting late for office, I'm leaving. What is the child going to focus on?
You're gonna feel completely confused,
Right?
especially at that age.
And it's going to emotionally focus on the fact that its parent, who possibly should be giving security, is leaving.
Yeah.
Who do I turn to in that moment? Yeah, because children also have, even if they don't speak, they have a certain amount of separation anxiety. If I forget something in my dress, something wrong, then mummy has to be there or papa has to be there or whoever that parent is. Makes sense? So this kind of overcorrecting is where you have given like a long list of things which possibly the child is not even going to remember. Even if you wrote it down,
Yeah.
right? The child will find it difficult. So here's the question of the complexity, right? So the first one is you are violating your role in correcting the child. The second one is you overdoing the quantity of it. The third one is the complexity that you're doing. And the last one, which is a very obvious one, is that are you really telling the child the right way to do this? So, for example, you say, you are correcting the child by saying, this time when you go out to play, what you need to do is 2, 3 things that you say, okay, watch where you are playing. If this happens, like it has rained, if you see that the ground is wet or do this, then please make sure that you avoid hard surfaces, stay on soft surfaces. Even if you are on soft surface, don't go close to bushes, etc. Right? Whereas you say, it's rained outside. When you go out to play, be very careful, don't fall and hurt yourself. Is there quality in that instruction? It isn't.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this may not necessarily qualify as over-correcting, but this correction is inappropriate and it can end up in a way that it really doesn't serve the purpose. Right? Whereas actually what you should have said is, okay, don't step over hard surfaces or tiles because they can be slippery, and don't go close to bushes, etc. There could be insects, etc. that could bite you. Be careful. So like that. So in that sense of correctional issues, over-correctional issues, I would classify these 4 categories. Each one of them causes its own issues. When you violate your role, it creates its own issue. When you do it all the time, it creates its own issue. When you give very complex correction, it creates its own issue. When you give fuzzy correction, it also confuses the child, right? So keep it simple, demonstrate, break it down. If it's a situation that requires long hours or multiple supervisions, and I literally say that parent is playing the role of a supervisor here, you then need to give it time, give it those many attempts. If you have to take 5 times to correct the child, then break it down. Don't try to correct 5 times in one time. You're not going to get the results from the child. Hope this answers what you were looking for. And also the concerns of the parents from where this question came.
Yes, and while we were speaking once, that I remember you said that instead of over-correcting, why don't you connect with the child? So could you speak a little bit about that?
Why not? So I think we spoke extensively in the last video also about this, in the last podcast, where we had said that your bonding with your child is something that you need to consistently work on.
Yeah.
right? The time that you give, understanding their world, what is happening in their world. So, the role of diagnosis. So, I would say connecting is what? Connecting is being able to, number one, see your child as the child is,
Hmm.
not just thinking, interpreting, or any other way. Two is
Hmm.
making sure that you speak their language, their level of maturity, which is where they are age appropriately, you reach there. The third is
Right.
to then communicate with them in simple language, which is not loaded. There is a language that you can
Yeah.
use which is beyond instruction, beyond correcting, beyond just casual talk. There can be meaningful conversations. And in those meaningful
Hmm.
conversations, you have to then also diagnose what is really happening with the child. Does the child really
Hmm.
need your support? And if they do, in
Hmm.
what way, etc. So, all of this will become part of connecting with the child. But, like we have been saying,
Right.
this is not something that happens in one day. It's
Hmm.
consistent behavior. It's the culture of the
Yeah.
family. It is how things are done in general. Connecting is a sum total of multiple things that the family and you are doing together. That's
Right.
the
Right.
that's the whole aspect of connecting.
Right. And at this particular age, from 6 to 11,
Mm.
does the way you connect with your child change? Are there any specifics, like you said, the language
Uh, yeah.
or simple
So
things?
interesting question, and it's a tricky thing for different parents. Like if until the age of 3, 4, 5, you've been doing too much of baby talk and this, that, and the other with the child, uh, suddenly you will find that the child may not be responding very well to that, or the
Hmm.
child may be too dependent on that and is not responding to adult-like conversations, right?
Hmm.
So some of this can be a challenge. Or on the other side, if you've not been communicating a lot with the child anyways, now
Hmm.
suddenly you want to take control of studies and sports and music and this, that, and the other, and the habits, then again you will find that deficit and the challenge there. So does connecting with the children at this age change? Yes, it can. You may possibly need to change your own behaviors and learn what is working for the child. If you have had a decent relationship with the child and if you've helped the child through its ages of 3, 4, 5 appropriately, now you will need to change gears, because now what the child is going through and will go through over a period of time is much different, because the child is now slowly discovering more complex things.
Right.
Academics in the 7, 8, 9 age sort of start getting complex. Expectations of teachers start getting complex. You are no more a toddler. You are a young child in that sense,
Hmm.
and you are expected to perform at a certain level. Your school will expect discipline. So then you will need
Right.
to change your behaviors and your relationship with the child in this sense, right?
Right.
And like I said,
Hmm.
curiosity. The child may have a very different kind of curiosity here. Earlier,
Yeah.
at 3, 4, 5, it may have curiosity towards a name, utility, etc. Here
Hmm.
now, suddenly the utility, the curiosity will become, how does this work? What is the
Yeah.
science behind this? How do I take control of this? You know?
Right.
So some of that. So yes, your connection has to change significantly. What that will really be very different from parent to parent. It's no simple answer for it.
Hmm.
However, one consistent answer that we keep giving is, do you understand the age appropriate development of a child at this stage? And do you know what is the age appropriate parenting you need to do, which means the age appropriate instruction, age appropriate guidance, age appropriate support, age appropriate conversations. A sum total of that is age appropriate parenting.
Absolutely. And I would also like to bring in when we spoke about
Hmm.
competence, Vygotsky spoke about
Hmm.
the zone of proximal development. He said that,
Hmm.
you guide your children, but you just guide them enough that they can take it up on their own. You don't
Hmm.
overlook them, like you said,
Yeah.
nor do you just leave them, okay, you do what you want to do, but you just guide them
Yes.
enough so that they can take
Yes.
it on their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why structure and dynamics are both important. Structure has
Right.
to be sufficient, and dynamics have to be managed so that they don't overflow. That's the way to look at it.
Thank you, Dada, for that clarification. And while you were speaking,
Hmm.
you know, when we are teaching children to do these things, we also use reinforcements, right? And
Hmm.
what we end up doing is reinforce good behavior.
Good boy, good girl.
And
Yeah.
that good is so dependent on what we have understood as good, rather than what is
Yeah.
good for the child or, connect to the environment. So I wanted to, my next question was actually about it, is that how does rewarding good behavior damage
Hmm.
long-term confidence and creativity?
Yeah. So I think the answer is complete in its essence in what you said. Our understanding of good.
Yeah.
Right? So if parents understand the scientific concept of parenting, then if you reward a certain good behavior, it'll be good. But if you are rewarding something that is your notion of good, it'll be a problem.
Hmm.
Right? Now, let's say a very simple example. Um, is the child disciplined, or is the child just giving you its obedience to escape punishment?
Hmm.
Right? You've put a certain structure and the child has to do certain things. Yes, you may need to guide, intervene, etc. And the child does what it needs to. On the other side, you said with a heavy tone or with an instructional methodology, go do this. And you said that 10 times in the day, and the child did all of that only to escape punishment. Not because the
Hmm.
child wanted to do it, not because the child understood the structure, not because the
Right.
child did it well. You simply said, you've been a good boy today. You listened to everything I said.
Yeah.
Question is, what are we reinforcing? Are we reinforcing discipline there, or are we reinforcing obedience or escaping punishment? Actually, you are reinforcing escaping punishment. So what the child
Punishment.
registering, if I have to escape punishment,
Hmm.
I have to behave like this. Don't question, just do it mindlessly. Now imagine the
Hmm.
same 8-year-old now has grown up 30 years and is a 38-year-old working in an organization. The supervisors and the leaders feel that this person is very compliant. However, there is
Hmm.
zero creativity, zero critical thinking, zero challenging, hardly any assertion, blah, 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 all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And once in a while, the person gets into conflict when the person feels pushed in the corner. So you're now
Hmm.
giving a feedback and trying to put the child into the 38-year-old person into training and trying to behavior change and do coaching. Why did that happen? That happened because the 8-year-old was dealt with a bad habit. Right? So yes, like I said, the answer is in what you said. If we find our notions driving our parenting,
Yeah.
then there's a problem. We have to learn what are age appropriate behaviors that human
Hmm.
beings need to develop,
Hmm.
what kind of values really help, difference between values and beliefs, what do we carry, how and what kind of sociological behaviors really help, and then do what it is. Like, don't talk to strangers. Obviously, you don't want the child to talk to strangers when the child is not monitored. But if it's a blanket instruction, so when the child goes to a new school, the child finds strangers. Injunction inside is don't talk to strangers. The child will depict shy behaviors. Then the child finds some children it is going to be comfortable with and makes friends. It doesn't even explore who are good friends, not so not so good friends and all that.
Hmm.
Right? So there are consequences to these things. So we need to really learn what are we saying. Are these becoming blanket injunctions? Is the child taking on a certain kind of script because of that? So all of that.
Yeah, and I would really like to highlight two words that you used consciously, which was we don't want to just make our children compliant, especially at that age when they have so many questions and they are ready to take in so much information. But we want to help them nurture their creativity while
Yeah,
also they do things that are good for them.
absolutely. Structure is not equal to compliance. It's good to have a child follow a structure.
Hmm.
Within that structure, whatever compliance it learns, it's fine, abiding by rules, etc. But
Yeah.
making a child compliant fully, that is then maybe killing its creativity, maybe killing its communication, maybe killing something.
Yeah,
Something is getting broken there.
absolutely. And So we also, because at this age we don't see children as adults, of course, and someone who are capable of taking their own decisions. Neither are they're not even babies. They are at that age where they are grasping a lot of things. So sometimes even parents who actually care and who want to help them out, they end up overprotecting children.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what can be the cost of doing that?
I think very, very interesting conversation. And this is where I would encourage all parents to get a little understanding of transaction analysis. Right? And I'll especially encourage all parents to read I Am Okay, You're Okay by Thomas Harris. So, so there's a lot for parents to learn from transaction analysis. And one of the things they can simply understand is if we were to represent our personality as three circles which are just touching each other, the parent recording, the adult functioning, and the child state. So the parent, adult, and child are the way Eric Berne, the founder of transaction analysis, and all of us in the transaction analysis world understand how a person's psyche is and how we operate with this world. Right? Now, the child ego state is what each one of us is inherently carrying and what we were born with, our innate reactions, needs, all of that. Over a period of time, the parents or parental figures, the way they nurture the child or the child's inner voice operates, also, all of that recording is the parent ego state.
Hmm.
But what emerges over a period of time, mind it, emerges over a period of time is the adult ego state. This is the ego state or the part of our psyche which is making sense of this world, which is learned to integrate the child aspect and the parental instruction and say, how do I deal with the world? My way and methodology of dealing with the world.
Hmm.
And this emerges over a period of time, right?
Hmm.
From very early life, it starts emerging up until a certain point where it is completely visible and mature, or it is contaminated or inhibited or isolated in some way. Don't want to get into the technicalities of this because that becomes a longer conversation. Someday we will speak about ego states and how it develops for a child. But understand the adult ego state or adult likeness develops over many, 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 many years. There is no one point at which you become adult. You can't say at 17 years and 3 months you have become an adult, right? There is a concept of a legal adulthood, right?
Hmm.
But there could be some adult operating in a child of 5 years also, or at 12 also, or at 17 also. And does that ego state really become clarified? Does its boundaries become healthy boundaries? Or as Eric Berne would say, that have we attained that level of autonomy and
Hmm.
spontaneity of the parent
Hmm.
ego state?
Hmm.
That depends on how the child receives the age appropriate instruction, age appropriate freedom, age appropriate controlling, age appropriate direction, age appropriate stimuli, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Like a child of 3 years may need a little bit more of hold my finger as compared to a teenager. I'm a father to a teenager. She still quickly holds my hand when she needs to.
Hmm.
Or sometimes I extend my hand. But she's as free to let go of my hand and do what it is. And this is the same behavior the child has for many, many years. But was it holding my hand a lot more at the age of 5? At the age of 5, she would hold my hand and just lock her feet onto the ground on a smooth floor, and it was as if she was skating and she would expect me to pull her. Yeah. So, so because it knew that it had the safety of my daughter knew that daughter had the safety of her father's hands. There was a concept of fun and safety at one point in time. There's a concept of safety now. So you
Hmm.
have to be available. You have to be available in the appropriate way to the child.
Yeah. Right. So again, you were telling me what are the risks of overprotecting children at that age.
Yeah. So going there. So if you overprotect, you risk that adult ego state not developing cleanly.
Hmm.
You risk the child becoming dysfunctional and over dependent on you. Or you may even risk the child becoming dysfunctional and rebelling and finding ways and means to break rules and testing
Hmm.
boundaries. The
Hmm.
child may also have the risk of its own parental voices becoming too impinging and controlling. So not only are you controlling, but its own inner voices are also saying, oh, my parents say this, so don't do this, don't do that. Further inhibition could come up there. All of these are the risks. So you will cause a certain hardening of restrictions, or you will cause a certain hardening of rebellion or numbing.
Yeah.
You're not
Or like you
allowing the
said,
child to
depending.
naturally develop, naturally letting its adult ego state come up. Naturally, when the adult ego state comes and becomes an integrating adult, it is also going to balance how the child ego state comes up or the parent ego state takes control. Some
Hmm.
of that.
Hmm.
So letting
Yeah.
the child's personality emerge in a healthy way. If you protect correctly, if you overprotect, you are crushing the child.
Yeah. And Dada, how would we understand when are we genuinely protecting our children and not overprotecting them in like disabling them in a sense?
Lovely question. So, see, children of, let's say, a child of 6 or 7 obviously has that much less sensory awareness of its environment. So, your protection will be a lot more to do with physical dangers, some of those. But as the child grows up, you also need to teach the child how to protect itself psychologically, right?
Hmm.
Against maybe verbal bullying, against maybe criticisms, judgments. Now, will you not continue to talk to a teenager about physical protection? Yes, you will. But your role is much bigger in terms of teaching the child how to keep itself psychologically protected, morally protected, ethically protected.
Hmm.
Protected in the sense of, let's say, frustration control. Right? How do
Hmm.
you deal with frustrations? How do you not awfulize? How do
Hmm.
you not demean your own self? Right? So you're teaching a child at a later stage much more complex things about inner and outer protection,
Hmm.
right? Which is where reading will help. Now, just one few examples that we are giving right now may not help fully. So these are indicative. So again, encouragement is if your child is in the preteen age, read a lot about preteens. What is happening in their world? Talk to them, talk to experts, and you'll understand where you can offer protection. Same goes for teens. The other thing is ask your own self. You've also gone through your own age now. Fine, there may be a 20, 30-year difference between you and your child. Times are different. So you can extrapolate and project saying that what remains the same, what has not changed,
Hmm.
and derive instructions from there. Right?
Hmm.
So
Right.
observe, learn, understand, read a lot, get expert advice, ask your own self what help you required and you did not get, what help you did get, and how did that help you. We all have examples of this. But yes, it takes time. You need to sit down and contemplate about parenting. And
Right.
yes, you need to do this consistently. Unless both parents are doing this consistently, the child is not going to completely feel the positive impact of that. Let me also
Hmm.
bring that in. Both parents have to consistently do that. Not that both parents have to be present all the time.
Hmm.
One can predominate, but the other factor you have to be paying attention to is this, that how are you facilitating things consistently both on the inside and outside of the child. The child has those two
True.
worlds to deal with. You have to learn to
Yeah.
integrate that.
Yeah. So that they don't get those mixed messages and feel more
Not at
confused.
all. The moment mixed messages come, it's going to start phasing out. It's going to just put those messages aside and it's going to get it from a what it calls a more credible source. It's friends or teachers or somebody on the outside.
Right. Right. And because we came to this mixed messages, and that instantly took me to emotions that a child feels, about the mixed messages.
Hmm.
Mom is not giving me what we want, so I will go to dad, and dad is not doing it, so I
Hmm.
will go to mom. And because we're speaking about emotions, sometimes as parents, we don't understand what uh, invalidates children's emotions. Okay. So,
Hmm.
can we speak a
Hmm.
little bit
Hmm.
about emotional invalidation
Hmm.
and the consequences
Hmm.
of it
Hmm. Yeah.
for children?
So I think let's begin with the biological reality of this age, in that age group of 6 to 12 types. That the child's brain is really not developed enough, especially the prefrontal cortex, is not developed enough to handle complex emotions, feelings, sensations, and tasks. So is the child going to experience something? Yes, it's going to experience something. But what is that something it may not be able to identify with? Right? Like it did very badly in the quiz competition. The child is going to feel something. It may not have a name to it. And that's where emotional education comes in. Right? It may have a sensation which needs to be dealt with. It needs to also then adapt its behaviors, because obviously with emotions come a certain set of behaviors, right? So if the child
Yeah.
came home and told you that I'm not feeling good, I lost, or the child is not telling you this, but is behaving in a certain way, because it expected to win the quiz competition, let alone let alone winning, it didn't even come up in the top three, right? Now, if you say it's okay, there'll be more competitions and all that, the moment you say it's okay, ignore it, you've invalidated. Or the
Yeah.
child was crying, you said, don't cry. Why are you crying like a baby? Invalidated it. So, and there's so many. So when you don't acknowledge a child's emotion, when you ask the child to ignore it, when the ask the child to move on, when you distract the child and say, okay, let's take you out and let's make you feel good, you're again invalidating that emotion. So acknowledging is, I think, the first step of validating that emotion. From there, being able to name it. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Then associating it with what are the symptoms that you're experiencing, and then how do you deal with that? So you have to be able to get through that. Now, can you change the fact that the child did not do well in the quiz competition? No, you cannot. Does the child have a need to do well in the quiz competition? Yes, you have. Yes, the child has. If you say, don't feel bad, there are more competitions that are coming, you're somewhere also invalidating the child's need to do well.
Yeah.
So possibly at that point in time, you should have addressed the fact that I recognize that you have a need to do well, and you did not. And hence you're feeling bad. Let's talk about what you're feeling. Let's talk about how we can work you through right now through this emotion. Can you choose another emotion that you can work with? Helping through that dialogue. And maybe it will take a couple of days if it's a smaller child and if you've not done these conversations. Then also teaching the child how to deal with those behaviors and actions that will ensure that you achieve your goal. Because the point is not changing the child's mood and making the child forget it. The point is making sure that you've dealt with the emotion, then dealt with whatever challenges it's experiencing in the moment, and then dealing with those behaviors which will help the child achieve the goal. If not a quiz competition, a debate competition. If not the debate, the exams. If not that, something else. Whatever the child wants to excel in, because here the core is the child wants to excel. So why I gave you this example is also to help you understand that when we are invalidating an emotion, sometimes you're also invalidating a child's need.
Absolutely.
It is even worse if you're invalidating a child's drive. So you're invalidating the emotion could end up killing the child's need or killing the child's drive, which can be very bad for the child, because then it has repercussions and consequences in multiple other places, wherever that need had to get expressed, or however that need had to get fulfilled, or however that drive had to get expressed or get utilized or get the child to achieve something, then it gets invalidated. Remember, we all need to get ahead, get along, and find meaning. And you're teaching that child this at that age. If you don't teach the child the appropriate ways to deal with it, then not only are you leaving the child emotionally uneducated and handicapped, but also hurt, also incapable of either getting ahead or getting along or finding meaning, or all three of them. Yeah. Like in this example, if you say no, let's. Yeah, it can be very, very deep, because in this moment, if you extinguished the child's need to excel, you could have actually signed a blank check for the child to make the child a mediocre throughout life. because that emotion could have been so intense at that point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can now see how big of an impact it has, not just like the emotional, that's where I was stuck at, just the emotions, but it's also invalidating such an important aspect of their life. It's so core
Yeah.
to them. And it is coming out of straight out of
Yes,
internal
it is.
motivation. I want to do this. And then if we invalidate that emotion,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And this particular piece is something that all adults who deal with children need to understand. It's to be understood by not just the parents, but the grandparents, by relatives, by teachers, tutors, guides, philosophers, mentors, elder brothers or sisters who have an age difference of 7 or 8 years or more.
Hmm.
Everyone needs to understand these things, right? In fact,
Right.
emotional literacy and dealing with emotions, very important. In fact, I would even recommend that people read Albert Ellis's work and what he has done along with his colleagues and contemporaries on rational emotive behavior. And A book that immediately comes to my mind is A Guide to Rational Living.
Hmm.
I would recommend that people read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And um, while you were speaking, it's difficult to emotionally validate the child and acknowledge their feelings because parents themselves don't have the emotional vocabulary. They themselves sometimes cannot
Yes.
recognize what is it that they are feeling apart from hurt and upset, but
Yeah.
the nuances
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
emotion. And I was wondering that do we then end
Yeah.
up modeling stress and uh, that emotional confusion to our children? Then giving them clarity about emotions and not just emotions, about being authentically stable and calm while dealing with challenges in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the simplest answer is that if a parent has X amount of gaps, whether it is psychological, academic, sociological, physical, you name it, wherever those gaps exist. And if the child doesn't get those correct inputs at that age, the child is
Hmm.
going to pick up those deficiencies. Right?
Right.
Now, a parent may be a very shy parent, but there is some relative, some brother, sister who teaches the child how to be bold, or some teacher teaches. Wonderful. The gap is covered. But if the child does not get that input at that age, the child is going to learn that laggard habit. On the other hand, the parent may have a strength, but it is again not able to transfer it to the child effectively through effective parenting.
Hmm.
Again, there will be some challenge. Like if the parent is a gold medalist in math, doesn't mean that the child will also be a gold medalist in math or a research scholar.
Right.
But if the parent had learned the gentle parenting and transferred not only the love for maths, but the love for learning, the love to do things, and if the child also had mathematics as a stimulator, the child could have become even a PhD or maybe a Nobel Prize winner. Who knows? So it's a question of the parents' gaps and strengths. It's also a, a function of how the child's experience has been through that parenting, through what gets transferred to the child, and also the child's own preferences. So I think it's also a combination. So I think this is also a point where we must say that not everything that we do with appropriate parenting is going to get transferred to the child. There are some
Hmm.
decisions that the children also make at some point in time. There are
Hmm.
various other factors, chance, luck, the child's own stars, and those aspects. Let's not digress. Let's not disregard the fact that other than psychology, sociology, biology, there is also a celestial impact on the child. So just bringing that in to keep this humility that only through parenting will the child have a great future, not necessary. Through
Hmm.
parenting, does it mean that the child has a great opportunity to have good virtues? Yes, that's the way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. But uh, what I also meant was that parents nowadays have a lot of things to handle at a time. They have their responsibilities, they have
Yeah.
their work, they have to give children financial stability, then they have to give, there are too many things that they keep juggling with. And in that, sometimes it is
Mm,
natural
mm,
to feel worked up. Okay. But in spite of
mm,
that, how can parents still, because
mm.
children are also observing them while they are managing all of this, they are not blind to it.
Right.
And in that state also, how can parents model
Mm.
authentic calmness rather than, just showing that,
Okay. Yeah.
I can deal with all of it? How can parents do that?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing me back to that part of your question. So here are two things. Number one, do you need to shield the child from everything? Not necessarily. At a certain age, it also needs to see what its parent is also possibly dealing with, and especially in that teenage. Do you need to do this in preteens? Not necessary. You need
Hmm.
to give them a certain degree of isolation. So I think the first thing is letting them. First step of authenticity is letting your child see some aspects of what you're going through.
Hmm.
At a later point in time, it can also be talking to them about how you are dealing with things and seeing them actually and them seeing you actually dealing with things in the way that you've been talking about, right? So what is modeling? If we break it down, the authenticity of showing them what you're going through, talking through them about what you're going through, about also telling them how you are coping with those things, all of that also. In fact, another part of authenticity is sometimes when you are clueless or you don't know what to do, also being honestly saying that, look, I possibly don't know how to deal with this, but I'm going to figure it out. Some of
Yeah.
that. So some of that will bring authenticity into the parenting.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen a lot of my friends and me also realize later in life that, oh, my parents can also make mistakes because all that while we were also expecting them to be
Yeah.
perfect. And now suddenly when we are grown up, we realize that
Yeah.
they can make mistakes. But if it is shown from that age, but not so much that it is
Yeah.
overwhelming for them, but enough for them to understand that there
Yeah.
are problems and we
It's
can deal with
okay. Yeah. You see, it's absolutely natural for children to sort of hero worship their parents at times, my papa strongest, my mummy more beautiful, my mummy bestest. They can say all of these things. But it's all right. So you have to, at some point in time, bring them out of that and, help them understand the world. But you have to help them make sense of it. And it can happen
it.
only in the age. Preteen is still a time that you may still need to keep your children a little isolated. But yes, you have to sort of start helping them understand concept of disease, concept of death, concept of separation, grief,
Hmm.
over a period of time, all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I'm so glad you brought it up because I was also reading that this is the age when they are exposed to also and they just begin to understand these abstract concepts of death and then, more complicated social behaviors
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
compromising and all of that. So, how can parents navigate that? I'm sliding this question in, but I think it's important that we are here.
So simplest thing to do is just get educated first about your own self. People don't know how to talk about this. So
Hmm.
today, fortunately, there are a lot of resources available. So if you don't know how to talk about certain thing, whether it is death or it is, social stress, or it is talking about failures, or it is talking about concept of sexual education or concept of money. If you don't know, ask. These are complex questions. There are no straight answers. Don't
Hmm.
use your fantasy stories or fancy stories to talk to your child. Read
Hmm.
good material. That's the only way you can address this. If you don't get good material, talk to an expert. How do I introduce this idea? They will give you these metaphors through which you can talk, or
Hmm.
similes, or comparisons, or stories that you can tell. That's where I think let's just leave that as a very simple answer, that get guidance, get good guidance. Otherwise, there is no way that you can deal with these questions.
Hmm. And one last question from what I've compiled from our parents is, in this world where there is a lot of information available, there are teachers, there are tutors, there is social media, there is YouTube, there is so much information that they are coming in with. But what role can parents still play without removing themselves out of, a teacher? They are also their first teachers. So without doing that, how can they still be more present parents in spite of having all these other resources around?
Hmm. So let's just clarify that question a little bit and let's see if I've understood that deeply. When you're saying these resources are available, are these resources which the child automatically has access to, or are these resources that the parent has chosen for the
Hmm.
child? Which of
So
these
some of
resources are you
them
talking?
are
Because both are there today. A child has access
correct.
to a lot. Huh.
Correct. So some of them are provided by the parents, like school and teachers, and if they go to a daycare or something.
Hmm.
But there are also resources that are there because they have these devices and everything. So they can
Hmm.
themselves
Hmm.
explore
Hmm.
certain channels and learn by themselves. So both.
Makes sense. So I think that, yeah. So let's leave two keywords there. One is purposeful, which means whatever resources are chosen or provided, they have to be done purposefully. What is the purpose of this? And let's not overstretch it. Like the
Hmm.
child goes to school for a certain academic grounding, for a certain extracurricular grounding, for a certain social grounding. Now, if you expect the school to correct the child's eating habit also, discipline also, hygiene also, this also, that also, may not work.
Hmm.
Like extracurriculars, can the school give complete music training to the child, or dramatics, or whatever your child is interested in? May not be. So if your child is good in sports or music or theater or something that the child wants to learn, at some point in time you'll have to take the decision to get the child enrolled in a class outside of school. So you see the purposefulness, right? What is
Yeah.
my child's school for? Or same goes for tuition. Or let's say you decided to give access to gadgets to the child.
Hmm.
What is the utility of the iPad? What is the child doing with the iPad? If the child is going to constantly do research on the iPad, well, then you have not taught the utility of books and a library to the child. So you have to then ask that question: what is the purpose of what we are doing here, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the first anchor point is purposefulness of something, and not letting anything be purposeful more than what it is really meant to be. And which is where
Hmm.
boundary conditions have to
Hmm.
essentially be met, right? The second I would leave is reviewing and monitoring, or monitoring and reviewing, let me put it this way. So,
Hmm.
whatever the child is engaged in, you have to periodically, and this periodically is once at least in 15 to 20 days, you have to see, is the child using that resource or going through that correctly. In some cases, it's also daily, some cases, it's weekly, some cases, it's monthly, like playtime. What is the child, who is the child playing with, what are they playing, etc. You can take a look at it once in a week, once in 2 weeks, etc. The child's classwork, homework, lessons, etc. Is it going through? You can check it pretty much every day or every alternate day. If you're sending the child to a hobby class or a special training, then maybe once a month review with that special trainer or coach is very important. Whereas you need to keep the child monitored for its safety and social, like that. So you have to take that
Hmm.
understanding. So, how do we make sense of this? Number one, purposefulness and keeping boundaries. And number two, the monitoring and review for utility. And if something is not useful anymore, then you have to also then upgrade that from there. That's the way I think we should look at this.
Right. And because you said purpose, there is a very important thing that we want to talk about is intentionality. But I'm going to ask you that in the next uh, video that we create on this. But to now just
I think
sum up,
we'll talk about it in the teen video.
yes,
Huh.
yes,
Now, I think it also came to my mind that we should talk a little bit more of intentionality, but let's focus on that when we talk about teens, because in that context, it will become a little more clear to parents. Because at this stage, though there is industry versus inferiority and competence is coming up,
hmm,
but sometimes it may be very difficult for parents to even allow too much of intentionality. So we'll come back to the topic.
yes, yes, definitely. And so to sum up today's video, if you had to summarize, what are the three most powerful habits parents can build during these years?
Hmm.
And this is to prepare children for
Hmm.
adolescence, for teenage. what would you say? What are the three most powerful habits?
So, so I would have just wanted one, which is discipline,
Mm,
right? And discipline here is not listening to elders, but
mm,
discipline to follow the structures of life. Yeah. But since you've asked for three, I would give you three. So the first is discipline to follow structures of life.
mm,
Yeah, timetable, rhythm, doing what needs to be done, etc. The second is really the habit of learning, going through learning a subject, learning new skills, going through the rigors of it, sticking to something long enough so that that mastery sort of starts coming up. Because the
mm,
foundation of mastery is in these years.
mm,
So learning to learn, right? And
mm,
I would even say that learning to learn and exploration and all of these things, curiosity, everything goes handy here, right?
mm,
The third thing is to start, and this is the habit of start talking about its inner world and what's happening on the inside. So
mm,
you start expressing that in a safe way to your parents, because that then becomes a very important foundation for the teen to share, and also in adult age to share. Otherwise, if you don't teach that habit of sharing, it becomes difficult. So in that order, discipline to follow structures of life, going through the rigors of learning and mastering something, and
mm,
identifying and talking about what is happening in its inner world.
mm. Yeah. And we can extend the learning part to parents also, for them to learn age-appropriate parenting and what happens at every age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I guess all three apply to the household, all three of them.
right. Thank you, Dada.
Super. So I think you've
So
gone through your list of questions.
I have, but there is one more I want to keep for the last because this is a bridge for us to cross to the next video, which is, and may
Sure,
I ask
sure,
that question right now?
sure.
The question is, what is one
Please,
truth
please.
you wish every parent knew before a child turns 13?
Oh, okay. This is a very tricky one. So there are quite a few that come to my mind. Mm, what do we, what do we pick? Okay. So I think this is also to do with intentionality and things that is there. Um, I you have to teach your child how to be successful and likable at the same time. Right?
Mm,
It's a very very important one, because at this age many parents teach their child to be likable. Some teach their child to be successful. Some are able to teach neither one of these. Rare are those parents who are able to teach their child how to be successful and likable at the
mm,
same time. And since you ask for a truth that they need to know, you need to understand that children really don't understand the concept of success and likability and how they go hand in hand. This is something that you really need to know and
mm,
understand for your own self and for the child. And if you've understood this well now, and if you do some hard work in the pre-teenage, it'll be very easy for you to have your teenager master this, because the world that they deal with is now coming closer and closer to the adult world.
mm.
That's what I would leave it at.
I'm so curious to know what you want to say on this, but I'll wait for the next video. Thank you so much,
Indeed.
Dada, for
Let's
being
talk about this.
so
And I think you and I have
patient.
spoken about this to some extent. No, no, no. Understandable. Go on.
Yeah, you were saying something.
No, no, nothing. So we'll continue talking about this. Yes.
Yeah. So I would really like to thank you for being so patient with all our questions, and more are going to keep coming. So I look forward to more questions coming from our viewers and asking you all of them and sliding in my questions too.
Happy for all the compilation that you're doing, and it shows how much hard work is going in from your side, talking to parents and getting these answers. I hope it reaches all the parents who have also given you these questions. Look forward to doing the next part of this conversation, and this time we'll pick up and talk about the subject of teens. Thank you so much to all of you who have been sharing your questions and patiently encouraging us to do more and more of this work. And thank you, Aarti, for all your research. Look forward to seeing all of you very soon. Thank you. Till then, enjoy your parenting.